Hey guys, so today we are going to build a to-do app completely from scratch inside NuxtJS. So I can add here like a new to-do protein shake and maybe work out coding with code camp base. And so if I click on one of these, they will be removed just like on a read to-do list. And yeah, we can remove to-dos, we can add new to-dos, everything's working, and this is all powered inside Nuxt.js. Okay, creating this app was actually super fun. Hope you guys will enjoy it as well. This will be a two-part series. In this part one, I will explain to you everything how you can just like create a standard to-do list on one single component or page, and then later on at the end of this tutorial we will refactor our code and I will show you how you can use the state management library or solution from Vue called Vuex inside Nuxt.js. Okay, I will show you how we can create a new store and how we can refactor the code that we have to Vuex so that we have a full working state management library that we can then access in each component or page inside our app. So yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy it. Let's get started. Alright, so to get started, let's cd, at least I need to cd to my C partition, and inside there I have a folder called code, and there also one called Vue, and inside here I would create a new Nuxt app by saying npx create Nuxt app, and then let's just call it, I don't know, Nuxt to do, and let's hit enter. And so the Nuxt generator will ask us now a few questions. For example, here the project name, so here we can just hit enter. Same for a description and the author name. For the package manager, I will use for this tutorial Yarn, and then for the UI framework Bootstrap Vue. And it's kind of like important that you also choose Bootstrap Vue so that you can follow along in this tutorial. And then for the server, I will use Express. And for the Nuxt module, we can just choose Actions because we don't really need to take care of that. We won't use it. And then here I want to use Prettier, and for your test framework just choose none. Then we want to have the universal app and then save everything inside JSON. And so this takes sometimes a little bit longer, which is why we pause the video here. Alright, so now that the Nuxt generator is finished, let's cd to the project folder by saying cd Nuxt to do, and then let's open up the text editor. It's now finished. Okay, so while we explore our project, just what is going on here? Okay, so while this is all loading, make sure to start server by saying yarn dev. And in case you are not quite sure what Nuxt.js actually is or what it does or what kind of purpose it has, make sure to check out my other tutorial on my channel called NuxtJS Authentication with Firebase, because there I pretty much explain I would say everything you need to know, what kind of problem it tries to solve, and you know, everything else that you actually need to know. Alright, and so the first thing that I want to do is to head over to pages while our server is initializing in the background, and then we have here inside a file called index. Okay, and the Nuxt generator added these kind of things here to the file because we added the UI framework Bootstrap. And so once this is finished loading, we can head over to localhost 3000, as you can see there. So if I head over to localhost 3000, we get here the standard template back, which just confirms, hey, everything worked fine, we are ready to develop the app. So I will just remove here pretty much everything except for the div container, like so. And make sure to remove this div as well. And so with that, if we save file, it should be now empty, which is the case. Awesome. And then inside the container, I will use the flex row, and then let's add a justify content center. And then inside here, let's add a div called md8. And then inside here, div cart, and inside the cart, I want to add the cart body. And then what I want to do is to add inside the cart body an unlisted group. And so let's head over to get Bootstrap documentation, And then let's search here for, I think it's called list group. There we go. Let's pick up here, I think the second example. Let's just copy that to the clipboard and let's paste it in. And so with that, we should have like a basic looking, kind of like a to-do form here, or list inside our app. Now, obviously we have here this kind of problem that looks a little bit stretched. That's because we still have here down the script tag, and we are loading, or actually style tag, and we are loading here all these styles in, which is something we don't want or no longer need. So let's remove that and save the file. And with that, we should get now back some kind of basic styles that look pretty decent, I would say. And so let's change this here quickly to maybe, I don't know, have do a workout, maybe coding, and then watch a tutorial. Right, and we should now see these changes here. All right. So obviously this is like to some degree working, right? But this is just dummy data, right? It would be nice to have some kind of ability to render to-dos that we have added, right? Like on a read to-do list. So let's get started with that. So the first thing I want to do is to remove here the components thing, because we no longer need the logo. And instead I want to create here data, and then add a return here. And inside here, I want to create an array called to-dos, like so. And then inside the array, let's add here a few to-dos. So for example, workouts, and then maybe drink a Coke, and then protein shake, whatever. Okay. And so how do we now render these to-dos inside here? Well, luckily in Vue, which is basically what we are using inside NuxtJS, it's super straightforward, just like it should be actually, because in other frameworks, especially in React, this takes much more work than it should actually. So here where we have our first lists tag, let's first off remove here the active one. And then what we need to do here is simply add an v4. And then here we can say to do in to-dos. And with that, Vue already knows, okay, we want to iterate this array here, which is pretty awesome because this is straightforward and it's also super clean at the same time. And so now that we have added that, we also need to bind the key, okay? And here we can simply say to do, like so. And then the only thing we need to do is to add inside these double brackets the to-do property. Okay, and with that, we should get now all these to-dos that are inside our to-dos array, which is here, and we simply get all of them here, and we are rendering them or iterating them here, and everything's working, which is pretty awesome because this took maybe just like a minute or two. So we can remove now the dummy data, because what we already got here is a little bit already dynamic. I can add here new arrays or elements and say, I don't know, learning, and it will be added now automatically to our list, which is pretty awesome. Now it would be nice to have also some kind of input form so that we can add right inside the browser new arrays or new to-dos to our list. So let's get started with that as well. So down here where we have our unordered list tag, let's just move that over to make it a little bit more cleaner. And then right under the list group here, I will create a new form. We can remove the action since we use Vue for that, and we will say submit prevent, and then we will use a function. Let's just call it sub. And then inside here, let's add a div form group and also inputs. And make sure to add to the input the class form control. And then we can also add a placeholder, for example, and say add to do, like so. And then let's also make sure to bind that to our model. Actually, before we do that, let's just add a button, because this way it will be more obvious to you. So button, and make sure to add your type submit, and then add to do, and maybe we also add immediately here a class of btn outline primary, so that we have also some styles for our button. And yeah, we have now here our form and also the button. Now let's add to the form itself, or to the form group, a margin top of 5, so that we have some space between our to-do list and the form itself. And then what I want to do is, let's see. Right, so we have here our input, and actually we have here our form, right? And I've added here the function sub, but currently we don't have this function. So let's create one. Let's add here a comma and say methods. And then inside here we simply create the sub function. And for now we can make an alert and say submitted form. So normally, if we did everything right, whenever we add something to our form or input field and click on add to do, this should make an alert with the message submit the form, which is the case. And this confirms that we have set it up everything nicely and that our form is communicating with the function here. All right, so now that we have confirmed that this is working, the next step is to add or connect our input with a model. So currently we don't have a model. So here we can simply say inside view v model, and then let's call it simply to do. And then here I can create simply a new to do data, which will be just a string. And with that, I can, for example, instead of just saying submitted form, I can console log or alert this dot to do. And so with that, whatever I type now inside the form should be now inside our alert message, which is the case. And this confirms that we have successfully connected the form with the to-do model here, and we are alerting that here out. You could also use console log if you prefer console log, but I think alert is more obvious and easier to see what's going on. And let's add also here to the button a margin top of 3 maybe, so we have also some space between the form and the button. There we go. Already looks much better. I will also add to the col MD8 a margin. And so now that we have done that, what do we need to do to add new to-dos to our list? Well, inside our function here, what we need to do is we first off need to check if the input is really empty. Okay, so I will simply say, hey, if we have this dot to do, if that's the case, I want to do something. In this case, I want to say this dot to do's push, and then we simply want to push this dot to do. Okay, that's all we have to do inside Vue, which is pretty awesome. And with that, we should be able already to add now things to our list. So if I say here, for example, coding with code camp base, and click on add to do, nothing happens. So let's see if this to do, that's a typo here. Okay, coding with code camp base, add to do, and there we go. It was now added to our list. And yeah, we have just created basically a standard add to do list or app, however you want to call that. Now there's one problem, and that is that whatever we are typing here inside our input field is still there, even though we have like submitted that to our app. So let's fix this as well. So after we say this to do's dot push, what we can say is this dot to do equals to an empty string again. Okay, and with that, if I add now, for example, coding, simply add to do, you see it cleared the form and added at the same time also the coding tasks to our to-do list, or it first added it actually to the list and then it cleared the input field. Okay, so we have done that. Everything is pretty much working. The only thing that is currently missing from our to-do app is kind of like a function to remove existing to-dos once we have finished them, for example. And let's get started with that as well. So here where we render the to-do, I want to add an h reference and simply point to nothing because we don't want to use that as a link but to trigger a function. And then I will simply add here an h tag or close that h reference tag here. And then to the age reference, I will add an add click trigger. And here, let's just say remove to do. And here we need to add the index. And so I will quickly talk about that. First off, we need to add here the index after the to do, like so. And then we inject that here to the remove to do function. And then down here inside methods, we can add a new method called, in this case, remove to do. And here we accept the index. And now let's just console log index so that you can actually see what it does. So before we do that, this index is automatically generated by Vue, which is also pretty awesome. And this gives us basically the array element of the specific to do. So for example, if we get workout, it will be 0. If we get protein shake, it will be 2. If we get drink a Coke, it will be 1, 3, and so on, because it always starts with 0, an array, right? And you will see this when we go back to the app now. So if I click here on workout, we should get back the number 0, which is the case. If I click on drink Coke, we should get 1. And if I click on learn, we should get back 3, and everything's working, okay? And again, it's pretty super awesome how easily this can be done inside Vue. It's just literally a matter of a few things that we have to type in to get the array element. And with the ID itself, we have the position of this array. So what I can now do is I can say this dot delete, and then I can say this to-dos, which is the object we want to access, and then we need to add the position we want to remove. In this case, just the index, because when we click on, for example, workout, it will be the position 0, and therefore Vue knows, hey, okay, we want to remove the index with the position of 0 in this to-dos array. So if I click now on workout, it should disappear from our list, and this is the case, everything's working. We can remove to-dos, we can add new to-dos, hello world, just not really a to-do, but everything works. All right. So we're pretty much finished with the app, which is more than awesome. I know I already said that Vue is pretty awesome, but considering what we just did in just a matter of a few minutes, it's just crazy. So basically we are finished, but I also want to show you how you can refactor your app with Vuex. So if you never heard of Vuex, it's basically the state management library or solution for VueJS, and luckily we can add Vuex easily inside NuxtJS. And if you want to learn more about let me quickly head over to my channel. If you want to learn more about Vuex and what it actually does and how to set it up completely on your own, I've made a tutorial in VueJS with Vuex and the Marvel API where I explain more in detail what Vuex actually is and how to to transform your Vue app so that it can use also Vuex and things like that. So if you are not familiar with this whole concept, make sure to check this one out as well, because there I explain pretty much everything. So inside NuxtJS, all we have to do is to go to store and say new file, and here we simply say state.js. And then here we can say export default, add here like a function like so. And then we can just add here, what's going on here? Don't show again. And here we can then add simply our state. So in this case, we have to-dos, right? And so for now, we just make this also array. And then let's add here whatever, 1, 2, 3 to make this obvious, like so. And with that, we can now head over to our index file. And here where we say, actually, we don't have added the mounted method yet. So let's add here mounted, like so, add a comma. And whenever we have mounted this component or the page in this case, let's just print out this dot state, or actually store state to-dos. And normally we should get back, when I head over to locus 3000, the state, but we don't. And that's because I think we have to restart the server whenever we want to use Vuex. Let's just try this out. Pretty sure it it had something to do with the fact that I haven't restarted the server, because this looks all good to me. And yeah, the fact that it loads much longer now is a good sign, because that means I think it's introducing or loading Vuex. Yeah, I get a typo there, so let me quickly remove here the semicolon. All right. And now we got the alert back. So the issue was actually that I haven't restarted the server. So whenever you make significant changes to your app, for example, adding Vuex in NuxtJS, make sure to always restart the server. Same if you want to add Firebase. Later on, when we will do that, you will see that it will also restart server, because Vuex needs, or NuxtJS needs to reload all the new dependencies and things like that. So obviously we have just created basically another array called to-dos, but this time we are using the state management, and as you can see, it's super straightforward in Nux.js, right? All we had to do is to create file state.js and then add here the to-do array, and then we just can access that via this $store state to-dos, which is pretty awesome. I can't say it enough, to be honest, because this makes front end really fun to work with. Okay, so we have just done that. So how do we all now refactor what we got here to our state? So obviously we have created our to-dos array. Okay, so that's the first step. The next step is to create a new file called Mutations.js, and here I think I will open up here quickly the documentation, just to make the sure I don't do any syntax errors here. So yeah, we have just to use export default. So export default, and then we can use the method we want to use. So I will quickly talk about mutations, but let's first off add a mutation. So we can grab the state. So I would just call this method, or function in this case, let's just call it add to do, right? And then we will add your state, and then I would say, hey state, to do's push, and then we want to push something, right? In this case, the payload, but currently we don't have a payload, so we need to add that here as well. And I think to make this even more obvious for you, or more easily to understand, is we will just alert the payload. Okay, I think this way it will be very obvious to you what this actually is, what it does here. So whenever we add now something, instead of just saying this to do's push, let's also say this $sign store commit. Just had to think quickly how the API syntax is again. So it's store commit, and then we need to add to do's. We want to grab this function, and well, what do we want to add to that? Well, this dot to do. And now you will see that when I remove here first off from the mounted the alert, and head over back to our app and hit enter. So if I type now in, for example, I don't know, gaming computer, I don't know, doesn't make too much sense, but add to do, we get nothing back. That's actually, we got something back because I said console log, I think, or did I say alert? Well, we have an error. Unknown mutation type add to do's. Okay, I think it's just called add to do, so that's a typo on my side. So let's try this one more time, gaming computer, and we should get back now the alert with the thing that we have added. So here we said this store commit add to do this to do, and so this reaches or goes over to mutations, and again, NuxtJS is doing that for you, all the like setup, import, export, stuff like that. It is doing it for you. It's kind of like I like to refer to NuxtJS as the Ruby on Rails kind of like for Vue, right? Because there's like a lot of magic actually going on, but it's super convenient, and as you can see, it like it lets you build apps super fast, which is why I'm a big fan of it. So here we have the state, right? And then we say payload. And so the payload is whatever we add here as the second argument. So if I would here add here maybe a hello world, would be then the payload every time. So no matter what I add now to the form, for example, 2, we will get back hello world. Okay, that's because the payload is the argument we add here to the add to do. So we can remove that. And again, we want this to do because we want to have here a dynamic state management that allows us to add to dos whenever we want. And instead of saying just alert, what I will do instead, I would say, hey, state.todos. And with the state, again, this is something NuxtJS is doing for you in the background. It grabs the to-dos here, okay? With state.todos, we are grabbing this here. And so because we have grabbed that, or because we are grabbing that, I can say now push. And what do we want to push? Well, the payload. Whatever inside the payload, we want to push it. And so now you see, if I say dream, it will be added to the store. We cannot see it because I do not render it currently. But instead of using here, you know, our own to do like here, we can refactor this whole thing. Okay, instead of using the data return and things like that, we can pretty much remove that. And instead we can say created, and then we can say to-dos, and then we can just push this or connect this to our this.store state, and I think we call it to-dos, right? Okay. So normally with that, it should still work, okay? We haven't done really a lot. Let me refresh that. Okay, you cannot read property, that's the problem. So compute it. Now, cannot read state. Let me double check this one more time. Yeah, we have to create a method actually, like so. Inside the method or the function, we can add this thing. Yeah, we just need to return that, right? Okay. Okay, we get now back whatever 1, 2, 3, and that is because we just have inside our state whatever 1, 2, 3. So if I add here whatever, we should load that as well. We should now have 2 different elements. And if I add now here, for example, protein shake, this should work just like it did before. But it doesn't, and we get the message back, do not mutate Vuex store state outside mutation handlers. That's because we're still having here this logic, right? So we can remove first of this, and I think this was actually the issue, the only issue that we had. So if I say now Coke, everything's working. We get Coke back. I can say protein shake. It works. It works now just like it did before. Okay, so we kind of just like refactored our logic, and as you can see, we actually removed code instead of adding code, which is pretty awesome, which is why I'm a big fan of Vue, because it just lets you concentrate on doing stuff instead of like dealing with tons of lines of code, adding like bunch of different things that should be included in a framework. That's just my opinion. All right, so we have that, done that. Everything's working. Now the last thing that we need to do is to have the remove to do function inside our mutations. And I said to you that, or to you guys, that we talk about mutations as well. So I am already talking about actually what mutations are in my other tutorial, just like I said, with the Mario API. But just to make this here clear for this tutorial, mutations are basically just functions, okay? And there are also actually actions, but NuxtJS lets us just do everything with mutations, which is again pretty awesome, because with that we also save again time. So all we have to do in NuxtJS to use that is to create the export default, and then inside here we can create any function we want. So this is what we have here, pretty much the same as what we have inside our methods, right? I could theoretically use the sub method inside our mutations and you know, use it from our state or from our Vuex if I want. So in this case it doesn't make too much sense, because the sub is deeply connected to this page, right? Because we have you know, the form, we always have the data in this specific component, or in this case on the specific page, and therefore we try to or access the data right inside here. But for the to-do list, I mean, you could have like many pages, for example, where you want to have maybe a to-do list. And so with our refactored code now, it allows you to do it from anywhere in your app. Like we could create now tens or like tens of thousands of pages to over aggregate that, but we could add here as many pages as we want and always grab, for example, add to do. We could always grab the to-dos no matter where we are. With our other setup, we always had to add the logic. Okay, so if I had like another page, I would need then to add the logic as well if I wanted to have like a to-do list on this specific page as well, or I would need to like pass down the props, and all of that is like a lot of spaghetti code. This one is much more cleaner, right? We have just a state, we have the add to do function, and we can access this now from anywhere in our app. We don't need to specifically do that here inside index view. And again, NuxtJS lets us do that really easily. As you can see, we don't need to configure here anything. Again, that's just awesome. So let's take care of the last thing of this part one, and that is to remove the to do index. So here I would just add a comma and say remove to do. And then again, I will have here the state and the payload, and this will follow pretty much the same principle as here. I will in fact just copy that, paste it here in, and instead of saying this dot to do's, I will say state dot to do's, and instead of saying index, I will say payload, like so. And then we can remove here, pretty much remove to do, because we no longer need that. Or actually what we can do, we can just leave it here, and instead of just saying this dot delete, I will call from here the store commit. Okay, so this dot $store commit, and then I will just call remove to do, and here I will add the payload, which is in this case the index, the ID we want to remove. And normally this should already work. So if I click here on whatever, we get this delete is not a function. Okay, that's not good. So let me double check this here. Alright, so I was able to fix the issue. All I did was to replace it with view and dot delete, and then you also have to import view here at the top inside the mutation to make it finally work. So if I click on that, you see it works. The only thing that we have now, the issue is that inside index, this is now always empty. So what we need to do here is, I guess we have to say, yeah, we are still saying here, hey, if this to do, but we don't have that anymore, which is not good. So I guess we will add the data again and say return, and then simply add here again to do as an empty string. Let's see if that fixed the issue. Okay, we no longer get the error. I can still add things here to our form, and I can still remove them, and as you can see, it just works as before. So again, you don't need to refactor your app. You don't need to use the store or Vuex in this case, right? But I just wanted to show you also how to do that, because in probably 90% of all cases, when you're seriously developing an app, at some point you want to use some kind of state management, because you don't want to retype every time this kind of logic, right? It makes just your project bloated. And with Vuex, you can clean up your components and pages and easily store new to-dos or new states and easily access them, and then also easily like transform the functions that you have inside your component or page and refactor them simply to mutation. And then all you have to do is to use this store commit to call the function, or in this case mutation, right? Yeah, so I think I will wrap up here this tutorial. I hope you learned a lot. This is part 1. In part 2, we are going to take care to connect the app with Firebase, so that is a real to-do app, because currently I can add here anything, and whenever I refresh the app, you see it just disappears because we are just storing it locally, and that's not something we want. So I decided to split this up in 2 parts to like let you concentrate only on like one specific part per tutorial, and also to make it not too long. Okay, so in this part 1, you basically learned pretty much everything you need to know, I guess, about NuxtJS, how to like add some or create some simple to-do app, and then also how to like refactor your existing code and connect it with the Vuex, and how to use Vuex in NuxtJS. And yeah, we are pretty much finished with that in, I would say, a really fast time. And in part 2, which will come out, I hope I can do it like in the next few days, we will basically refactor this one more time, so that we actually don't store all that stuff on our like local machine, but instead we will push that to Firebase, and then we will also connect the state to Firebase, so that we are rendering it live from a backend. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed so far. If that's the case, if you have learned something, if you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe, and make sure also to like it, because it helps a lot. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.